What's up, everybody? This is Stuart Knight, author of the books Marginalizing White Supremacy, Poetic Visions, A Steep Mister for a Sister, and A Spirit the World Has Forgotten. And what's happening, man? I ain't been on here in 5 or 6 months or so. It's kind of been a while. Now I got this thing, I've been busy in the world, challenging white supremacy, and paying the price for it. But I'm trying to make a few consecutive videos here to put out a couple things that's been on my mind, and sadly, recently there's been another black person, a black woman to be exact, who was shot and killed by the police officers in some part of Illinois. I don't know exactly the name of the city. Sonya Macy was her name. And if you've seen the video, it's a pretty graphic representation of the mindset of many Western ethnic supremacists as concerning, when it comes to dealing with non-white people, specifically black people. But the title of this video is going to be, They Just Make Up Shit in Their Minds. And that was very prevalent in this incident that happened to this sister, Miss Macy. Because if you notice in the video, and if you're a black person, you've been pulled over by the police, you definitely notice this, is that they begin to ask you questions at a very fast pace to try to kind of get you confused and discombobulated, so as that either you can tell a lie on yourself, in a sense, or to actually stoke or heighten your emotions to where you may engage in something that is, contrary to your very livelihood, as it was in the case of Miss Macy. This form of rapid questioning, as I said, is meant to really trip up or gaslight, as they term it, your emotions. So it puts you into a frazzled state, which might eventually lead to you becoming aggressive. And then that gives them an excuse to do what they really wanted to do in the first place, was either harm you physically or harm you socially by putting you or giving themselves a reason to take you to jail. Because in their minds, like I said, they will just make up shit when it comes to you. They will alter the sense of what is real to fit their subconscious desires to harm you in some kind of way, or to fulfill a subconscious notion of your criminality simply for having been born black. And, and many of black men, definitely, and black people in general, can attest to those times when they've been at work and you might have a boss that kind of tells you or kind of gives you like vague, let me think of the word, not responsibilities, but kind of vague instructions on what needs to be done at a particular time on how you do your job. I mean, they tell you in such a ambiguous, they give you directions in such an ambiguous fashion to where, and they do this on purpose. They give you these instructions in such an ambiguous way as to where if it's what you think that they told you to do and you go out and do it, it turns out to be the exact opposite of what needed to be done. And therefore, they can sit there and either judge you and say that you're incapable of doing the job, or punish you to get you up out of the job in general. And they do this intentionally. Don't get me wrong, it is no mistake, because they have this underlying notion of the so-called feebleness of the minds of black people. In essence, that simply because you appear to them to be a black person, you're stupid. That's what they really think. So they think they can really just play these mind games with you, so as to where, in a sense that you actually fulfill their justification for practicing Western ethnic supremacy upon you. Like, take for instance, I give you an example from my one time I was on this job, and I operate heavy equipment for a living, and I was doing this job, and I was doing it a specific way. I had to build a slope. Nobody probably knows what that is, but it'd be like the declination or the decline or the incline of the outside of a piece of earthwork, where it kind of goes like this, or it goes like this or whatever. I was working on slope, and I had a specific pattern in which I was doing it. Well, every time I got to this point to where it got critical to where I had to actually build the slope, the foreman for this other company would send over a bunch of trucks, of his trucks. Now, I already had my trucks of my own, but he would send over a bunch of his trucks. So it would kind of overload me with work. So I would have to stop the trucks for a minute to put some dirt in and then motion them in. Well, that went on for about 2 or 3 rounds. And then he comes over to me and was like, well, we can't have the truck sitting like that. And I turned and tell him, I said, well, I mean, if I already got 3 trucks and you're going to send over 4 more every time I get to this point, I have to tell them to stop so that way I don't overfill the slope. And he just turned and looked at me and like, well, we can't just have them sitting like that. You see, when he said that, he already had something made up in his mind of what he was doing anyway. He wanted to try to prove that I was incapable of doing the job, which was far from the truth. So, and hence, I sat there and I just looked at him and I said, well, like I said, if you're going to send over those exos trucks every time I get to the slope, of course they're going to have to stop so I can put this in correctly. And then in turn, he says to me, well, if you can't do the job, then we're going to have to find somebody who can do it, which was his intention in the first place, was try to give the appearance or make the appearance within his own damn mind that I couldn't do the job, even though I was doing the job efficiently and effectively from the start. So hence, this is what I did. Already had in the bag another technique that I could use in order to be able to compensate for his trucks and my trucks also. But I wasn't doing it that way because it would be non-productive because the trucks would have had to back in too far. So I said, okay, then I switched it up to this technique. And once I did that, guess what? He didn't send the trucks over no more. You want to know why he didn't send them no more? Because he couldn't try to make visual what he wanted to do in the first place, was give the impression that I couldn't do the job, even though I was doing the job far better than what he could do it. And that was proved later on when he tried another way to block me. And I went ahead and kept doing what I was doing. And eventually he messed himself up and had to take out a whole bunch of dirt. And what did I do? Pointed at him and laughed. I laughed at him. I pointed at him like, fuck you. Oh, it was a great day. It was a great day, I must say. But to say that, this is the main thing, Black people. The game of Western ethnic supremacy is a cerebral one. So that's why it is so important for Black people in general to get a broader and a greater and a consistent and a constant understanding of how Western ethnic supremacy functions, so that when they try to throw these little traps at you to trip you up and just for their own amusement, give the appearance that you don't know what you're doing or you're not smart enough to be able to contend with them, in an intellectual fashion. That's why you have to learn how Western ethnic supremacy functions, so as you can better manage yourself. You can better, as a Black person, manage those situations where they try to create a reality for themselves that doesn't fit you. And many of Black people fall into this trap and begin to think of themselves as lesser or incapable simply because they play these mind tricks with you. Believe me, they will make up a reality to fit their own notions of what they expect you to be. So you can't stop them from doing that. The only thing you can do as a Black person is prepare yourself for it. to have plans in place ahead of them potentially do it, to have plans in place to where if they do it, you know how to go on to plan B and C and get the job done effectively and efficiently as you can, as you're capable of, and as you're supposed to get it done. So that way you can still keep earning your living. And even that, like in this situation with this sister Sonia Macy, if she could have picked up on how this white officer was gaslighting her to getting her emotional, she would have been able to keep her calm. She would have known to take a breath, keep her calm, respond and answer to the questions that he asked, and then try to get him out of her environment as fast as she could. Now, she may have been having some other troubles. That ain't her fault. She definitely didn't deserve what happened. And may God rest her soul. And hopefully, the punishment that is to be allotted comes swiftly and justly. If you know what I mean. But anyway, prepare yourself, Black people. That's what it's all about. You got to learn, you got to know so that you can do and you can achieve. And most importantly, bring peace to yourself. Because this system was definitely meant to keep you discombobulated, confused, and simply to keep you off track. But anyway, this is Stuart Knight, author of the books Marginalizing White Supremacy, Poetic Visions, A Steep Mister for a Sister, and A Spirit the World Has Forgotten. Available at Amazon.com and Lulu.com and Barnes & Noble and iBooks. So if you get this, go ahead and pick up a copy and you can learn a little bit about systematic white supremacy that will definitely benefit and help you in this world. And also my book, spiritual book, The Spirit the World Has Forgotten, can bring you an understanding of how you actually bring peace to yourself within this world. And the great thing about that book, race isn't even mentioned. But if you can, check them out if you can. Peace.